Everybody. Well, welcome everybody to this Feng Shui Society New Year, Chinese New Year webinar. My name is Gina Lazenby. I'm the chair of the Feng Shui Society, and we have this wonderful evening tonight. Welcome to you from all over the world, and we're recording this. Our special event tonight is with Nick Haines, and I've asked Nick to join us because he is absolutely brilliant at evaluating the energies of the year and in the context of cycles of energies. And those of us who work in Feng Shui are interested and understand about the 5 elements. He has spent decades working in this, initially for many decades in Chinese philosophy and healing as an acupuncturist and a school, and more recently has developed the 5 Institute. There's a clue there of what's at the core of that, the 5 Institute. And each year he presents, every week, aren't you? You're presenting webinars on this information to people around the world. So tonight he's going to talk to us about the year of the water tiger. So we're going to give you a big welcome. Nick, thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm here when you need me. I'm just going to spotlight you now. Replace spotlight. Okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Gina. And Gina, can I just check on timing, how long we've got together? Okay. How long would you like?
Okay, well, you talked about talking to us about 45 minutes. Now, whether that was 35 minutes of talk and then another 10 minutes of Q&A, but that's what is kind of an expectation. So let's, if that works for you.
Yeah, I just don't want to overstay my welcome.
I'm sure they would have you longer.
I tend to carry on until my bladder gives up. And as a man of a certain age, it has a limited lifespan to it. So first of all, Gina, thank you so much for asking me here. And thank you very much to everybody for being here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the year of the water tiger, and we're going to look at it in terms of what's actually going on. I'm going to give you some guidelines around how to handle it, but we're also going to bring in the some bigger kind of contexts that are actually kind of going on within it. So I'll run through some content, and then what we can do is we can have some questions, and we can explore things. And like Gina says, I worked as an acupuncturist for 35 years, been in this for 35 years, and this is my my sense of the 5 elements, as I often call them, the 5 energies, how they work within this context. So I hope you find it helpful. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. But before I do that, I'm just going to pop in the chat area. I'm going to be using some slides, and in that link there, that will give you all the slides I have used in this presentation. So you can just go all the slides, you can just kind of listen, and rather than having to desperately write everything down. Okay, so welcome. So this is looking at the year of the water tiger, 2022, and I regard it as a year to heal and be rewarded. I've taken this content from the stuff I present around the Chinese New Year, and then I've also taken some stuff from a masterclass that I'm running on 6th of February. So it's a mixture between a number of different events. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this into 3 parts. That's what we're going to cover. We're going to look at setting the scene. Although you're experienced with Feng Shui, I want to just kind of run through for any of you who are not as familiar with Chinese astrology. Then we're going to look at understanding what the energy of now is, what's actually going on, and how to handle. And then third one is we're going to look at some guiding principles, 3 guiding principles for 2022. So, like I say, here are all the slides. They will be there for you on that link. So the first thing, let's look at setting the scene. Now, we're going to look at this as the Chinese Zodiac. As you know, it's been developed over like 5,000 years as a way to understand patterns that keep reoccurring. I'm also going to bring in some other patterns, some larger cycles that sit outside the Chinese Zodiac. So the way the Chinese Zodiac works is each year is related to one of 12 animals. It's also related to one of the 5 elements, one of the 5 energies. So basically, each of these years occurs once every 60 years. So the last time we were in this place was 1962. So for many of us, depending upon our age, this is often one chance to have a really good go at the kind of water tiger year when we're in our full power. Now, each year has a theme, a flow, an undercurrent, a kind of a vibration to it that's made up of the element and the actual animal itself. And each block of time, each block of 12 years also has a theme and a flow and an undercurrent and a vibration to it. So we're currently in a block of 12 years that's kind of dominated by kind of metal. We've got kind of 2 metal energy years to start with, which is like the kind of opening chapter, the kind of examination. This is what we're going to explore. And then it ends with 2 metal energy years. So we're really saying, okay, well, this is the exam. How did we get on? So out of these 12 years, 4 of them are this metal energy, which kind of gives a kind of dominance to this block of time. So both the animal, the element, the block of time will all kind of resonate and vibrate with us as an individual. Now, you could say at this particular stage, well, what aspect of me does it kind of resonate or vibrate with? And you might say, well, okay, I was born in the year of the Earth Pig. I'm a Leo. I'm a number 22 numerology. I'm this, I'm that. So we can say it gets to be quite difficult to try and make sense of the year in terms of other things that are making sense of us. So I think a really good way to look at the energy of this particular year is to do it through your vitality test profile. So the vitality test, what it does is it gives you, it's an assessment and it looks at various questions and it gives you a kind of a readout of the kind of balance of the energies that are in your profile. And so we have a whole range of different profiles that come out. It's worth saying that just because, as we would think, as 2 people might have exactly the same profile, because they don't have the same values and they haven't had the same life experience, and all importantly, they haven't really made the same promise that when they came to Earth. So the Chinese believe that when you came to Earth, you made a promise to do something, to be something, to explore something. So although we might have similar vitality test profiles, we're not the same people, we've not made the same promise. However, what you can say about the vitality test profile, where you have the kind of dominant energies, that tends to be where you'll have your focus or your kind of way of seeing the world. Whereas when you have your least dominant energies, and you'll either see it just flattening off or these dents, and when I see these dents, I often think of those as an active dent. There's something going on around that. But where you have these kind of low energies, that tends to be where you have your kind of blind spots or your lack of focus. So it's really important in a year to recognize, okay, this is the way I'm seeing the world, and this is where I have my blind spots. And a water tiger year, it's actually pretty important to kind of know those things. And I think that's a much better way to look at these years than necessarily saying, okay, I am Earth Pig, whatever it might be, or a Leo, or whatever. So if you want to take the vitality test, it is completely free. Just go to 5institute.com. So let's just kind of unpack that a bit, just kind of pull that together for you. So we have the energy of the year. We've got the characteristics of the animal of that particular year. Then we've got the energy of this block of time, metal energy. And then we've got you as an individual and kind of represented by your vitality test profile. Now, a really important thing is when we look at these years made up of the water energy, the tiger, the block of time, you, etc., and how they're interacting. We've also got to say, well, what's the context in which we're sitting? So the last time we had a water tiger year was in 1962, but the context of 1962 was different than the context now. And we've also got to constantly consider that, context does matter. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about some context here that isn't, I don't share this all the time. So I want to kind of explore this with you because I want to just move things to the conversation to a slightly different place, above and beyond just where we're sitting in this moment of time. So as well as having these cycles of time that move through years, you also have cycles within certain aspects of humanity. So if we currently pick three of those, looking at geopolitics as a cycle, consumerism as a cycle, and spirituality, these cycles tend to move over hundreds and perhaps thousands of years. They're very, very slow changing cycles. They aren't fixed in time. They change as a result of humanity and humans, us developing. But these cycles are related to, you can say, currently geopolitics, we're in a kind of fire energy phase. So fire energy is about, am I loved? Do you love me? Am I popular? So our democracy is based around whether or not I'm kind of loved or appreciated. That's who decides who gets to be in power based on love. Consumerism, spirituality, we have things, and these are very, very slow moving cycles, and they change very slowly over time. However, what we have going on at this moment in time is we have every single one of these things trying to shift into a different energy, to have a different set of characteristics, a set of behaviors. And I kind of track back over time and try and work out, okay, when was the last time we had a major shift in our geopolitics, a major shift in our style of consumerism, and a major shift in our spiritual evolution? And when did it happen that all of those were coinciding and trying to change at exactly the same time? And there are times when there was a slight shift in one and the other, whatever, but this is a major shift that we've actually got going on in three areas for humanity. Now, when we get large amounts of change, and particularly in kind of three areas, big areas that matter to society, we have a stuff that comes up is that as human beings, some of us, many of us can struggle with change. As things alter and they change, I'm struggling with them. So the context that we're sitting in at the moment is we're sitting within a context that some human beings are really struggling with this change. So we're seeing tribal behavior coming on, and people say, oh, no, I belong to this and I belong to this kind of this identity. So we're seeing anger, we're seeing irritation. We're trying to say, no, we need to keep things the same way. We want to go backwards, or we want to hold things the way they are. We also have people potentially in times of change to kind of really lock horns, to kind of come together and say, no, I believe this, no, I believe this. And this is really being exacerbated, this locking of horns, because we've just come out of a kind of metal ox year. And oxes, when they get under stress or their thing and they're trying to defend their position, they lock horns. And that's also has been exacerbated because metal energy also loves simplicity. It's this desire for simplicity, and less is more, connected with autumn and things disconnecting and things not being there. So how can we have less? So this is big desire for elegance, but also simplicity. And one way to do that, to have simplicity, is to say, well, let's just have black and white thinking. And there is this kind of divide based on, let's keep it really simple. You're bad and you're good. You're this and you're that. So we end up with this polarization around simplicity, that this 2 metal energy years, this metal energy block of time is really brought to the fore. But it's really been kind of brought to the fore because of the block of time that went before, which was dominated by earth energy. And earth energy is saying, how do we fit together? How do we come together? How do things assimilate? So there's that assimilation, that coming together. So we kind of explored that for the last 12 years and saw wonderful examples of how we can come together as human beings and solve problems. But we also saw examples of how, as human beings, we can come together, not within a large sense, but in a very small tribal sense. So we saw, in a response to that earth energy block of time, we saw tribalism start to appear as a response to change and as a response to that block of time. And that's then been exacerbated with even more black and white thinking as this kind of metal energy comes in. So we've had this ox that's there. And in that year, we've had a metal rat in another year. And the rat kind of adds to it as well. Because one of the things about rats is that they're tremendously kind creatures. They're lovely. They're highly resourceful, which kind of made 2020 a slightly easier year than 2021, where we had the very plodding nature of the ox. But so 2021 was easier on some levels. However, when you do black and white thinking and you do tribalism and a rat starts to get under pressure, when it gets backed into a corner, it can be really quite vicious. So that's the kind of context that we're sitting in. We're having human responses to these large changes within geopolitics, consumerism, spirituality. We're seeing a response to whether or not we should have bonded together as human beings or whether we went tribal. And then it's been exacerbated by the exploration we've had within that rat year and the ox year. And then, of course, we've had an experience where many of us have been very isolated, alone. Other people have been afraid. We've had loss, we've had trauma. We've had, in the last 2 years, are what's known as foundation years that allow us to build something for the future. And within foundation years, we have to, particularly metal energy foundation years, what we're being asked to do is to clear the ground and to let go of things in order to have space to have something new. So that experience has been very traumatic to people. So we've also got healing to do. We've got division. We've got this going on. So there's a lot kind of riding on this particular year. There's a lot of kind of stuff in the past that's gone on that we have the potential to carry through. So let's look at understanding, that's a context we're sitting in, but let's look at understanding the energy of now, and particularly looking at the water tiger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down to 2 parts. First of all, I'm going to look at the water energy and say, okay, well, what are kind of some main characteristics that we've got going on that we need to look at within this world? And I'm going to break that down into 3 things. Okay, this is the kind of essence of water energy, water element. So the first one is kind of consequences. So as we know, in ancient China, each energy was related to a particular season, and water was related to a winter. And I think they really did that because that is a time of consequences. Looking at those farming communities, if you didn't plant your seeds, if you didn't look after them or you didn't harvest, then there were big consequences that happened in winter. You basically starved. Whereas if you looked after them and you watered them and you fed them and then you harvest them appropriately, then you actually have a very abundant time. So within this water energy year we've got coming on, we have kind of consequences are going to be one of the things that will really start to play out. So obviously with consequences, there can be good and bad consequences. If you eat well, you meditate, you take exercise, you look after your body, you open your heart, you look after your home, you set things up to have flow, then consequences are great. Whereas if we don't do that stuff, and you don't look after yourself, you do that, or we continue with this black and white thinking and this conflict, then there will be consequences to that. So no year is a lucky, as we know, no year is a lucky or an unlucky year. I mean, some years are more important, and this is a really important year, but no year is unlucky or lucky. It just depends upon how you handle it and what things you do to deal with it. But like I said, this is a complex time. So the first thing is you just need to think, okay, there are consequences, and I, within my gift, will decide on how I want these consequences to play out. The next important thing to the essence of water energy is there is stuff going around authority and trust. So each energy gets us to ask a big question. So the big question for water energy is, am I safe? Is it safe? There's an always looking towards safety. There's looking towards consequences. So often we find people with a lot of water energy in their profile, we naturally trust them and they have an authority to them. Whether that trust and authority is deserved is a different matter, but we naturally tend to trust people with a lot of water energy and have an authority. So you'll often see news agencies, for example, will pick female newsreaders or news anchors that have a lot of water energy. And you'll see that characteristic, very square jaw and strong jaw thing. And they pick those people because they want you, me, to trust them with the news. So they pick people who we naturally trust and have some authority. And there's some gender stuff that kind of goes on around that, but you'll characteristically see this big square jaw. The final thing with the essence of water energy is it's around purpose and leaving your mark. Now, water is the only substance that actually really leaves its mark on the earth. If you think about the Grand Canyons and the glaciers, the valleys that are carved out by the glaciers, all the things that have left its mark on the earth, they have been created by water. Every other substance is very transitory. The plants, the fire, the earth, the coming and going, they kind of move around. But water creates a kind of a mark on the earth. But it isn't done overnight. It's through constant action. So we've got a water energy year that's about leaving your mark on the earth through kind of constant action. And this is the first of these years that we have had since 2013. So it's a really, really 2012. Sorry, it's a really, really important year. So now let's look at the tiger and let's look at what that adds to the party, because we're combining these two together. And let's look at the essence of the tiger. So the first thing to say about the tiger is that by very nature, they're kind of brave, confident, and they kind of blaze new trails. So we've gone from a year that was 2021, the ox year, which are very traditional, very kind of plodding. They don't like things to change. They just stay in their lane and they get things done. It was a tremendous year to develop your own traditions and your own things in order to keep healthy and well. But it was not a year to blaze new trails. It was a year to dig things up, pull things out, to plow the ground, to prepare things. But it was not blazing new trails. So we've moved into a year where there is kind of bravery and confidence and blazing new trails. The next thing about the tiger is that they're very, very kind of dignified. They're kind of royalty, they're sovereign. And then there's also a trustworthiness, there's a power to the powerful leaders. So we're seeing this royalty, this sovereignty, this dignity, this trust, this powerful thing. We've got a very, very powerful energy attaching itself to water. And then finally, that tiger is very passionate. So we've got kind of coming from the heart. They also kind of love a challenge. So, okay, I mean, we have been given challenges and we've also been given the tiger to say, okay, we love a challenge, let's go for it. Then we've also got the never giving up. Now, I think that's probably the trickiest bit within this year, the never giving up. So that's for a number of reasons. Say we get stuck in this black and white thinking, history comes into this thing and we take this through. And water energy, the emotion is fear. So people come into a place of fear. They like their black and white thinking. They don't want things to change. They don't want things. And say they never gave up their black and white thinking and you just carried on locking horns. That's a really dangerous scenario for the future. That has consequences. Also, the never giving up. Water energy is about our reserves and our resources. It's about sustainability. It's about whether or not things will last, whether they'll be safe. And what if you never gave up and you just carried on doing it regardless, as to whether you had the energy, the reserves, or the resources, because you had this tiger in you to carry forward. And perhaps you were on this big purpose-driven mission, but you didn't give up. And perhaps you were really stirred up about what was going on the planet. And it has a danger to it that we would never give up. So just be really, really aware of that. So the water tiger has this brave, confident, blazing new trails, dignified, trustworthy, powerful leaders. It's passionate, this kind of love of a challenge. And then there's never giving up. And that can be good, the never giving up, but that's the one I would just watch out for. So let's compress these together. So we've got the consequences, the authority, the trust from the water energy, along with this kind of purpose and leaving your mark on the earth. Then you've got this kind of brave, confident tiger, dignified, trustworthy. Look at that. We've got a lot of trust going on, a lot of authority, power going on. So there may well be stuff we see over this next year that's about trust, authority. Are we going to see people in power trying to hold on to that power to force things? And we are, I think, going to see lots of trust things coming on. But so that's a real thing. So let's pull this together and look at the kind of what I regard as 3 guiding principles for you in 2022. Look at taking everything we've looked at. So I've heard lots of people talking about the tiger years, how you've really got to watch it. Water is about danger and fear and consequences, and tigers are vicious and snarling and backing into a corner. So it's a year that has the potential to really attack us. So it's a year we've got to be really careful about. And I don't think that's true. I think there are things externally we have to be aware of because there are consequences, but the tigers are not vicious. They're regal and they're royal, and they have a stability to them. So I don't think it's about the external tiger that's the issue. I think it's whether or not we are able ourselves to become water tigers. That's the thing that we need to do. We don't need to fear the outside or the tiger year. We just need to say very consciously that we need to become water tigers. We need to have the very best of that water energy, the very best of tigers, and use that. So this is what I regard as kind of 3 ways to do that. So the first one is to choose who has authority in your life. So what I mean by that is, say in the morning you got out certain papers and you started to read them, or you listened to the news, or you watched certain things, or you got involved in on Twitter or a dialogue. Then inherently what you're doing there is you're giving authority to an external source to decide how you feel and how you see the world. And the one thing we must do ourselves is actually, I have divinity, I have power, I have sovereignty, however, how I choose to feel. And that choice may be saying, actually, I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to engage with that. I'm not going to be stirred up. I'm not going to be frightened by it. I'm going to do what is going to be good for me, to have feelings and emotions and states that are good for me and are good for the world. So we really need to make a kind of an active choice, as to say, who is going to have authority on my life about how I react and how I feel about things. And the idea is that you have authority yourself. And it is a magnificent year to do that. The second thing you should be really doing is you should kind of rise above and kind of lean into your power. So we've had some quite scrappy years. The rat was quite scrappy, the ox kind of locked horns. But what we've got here is an ability for us to say, as human beings, we actually rise above that and we will lean into our power. And we've got help to do that. I mean, water energy has, it's reflective. It's the ability to kind of reflect and see the bigger picture. Every energy has a relationship with vision, a way to kind of see things. Metal energy that we've just been in, it's the ability to have a vision, to be able to detach. And one of the things that happens is when we detach, we immediately start to have a bigger perspective. And that's what water energy does, is it gives us a bigger perspective. It's linked to winter, where we have the past, we have us in the here and now, and a potential for the future. It's about when we can have these kind of water energy phases in our life where we gain bigger perspective, or we look for bigger things. So we've got the water energy naturally will give us a bigger perspective. And you often find people with a lot of water energy, they might be academics, or they might be theorists or strategists, they might be futurists, because they're looking at that kind of bigger picture. You'll also have them as archaeologists and historians, because they want to bring the past to the future to learn, because it's looking at the bigger picture. Water energy has a very, very long relationship with time. It spreads across time. So we've got this water energy that will allow us to rise up and see this bigger picture way beyond our personal emotions. We've also got the power of water energy. I mean, on Earth, there is nothing that can stop water when it wants to move somewhere, where it wants to go somewhere. There's nothing, whether it's flowing around and through and up and over, or whether it's just doing it by sheer power. It has the ability to get somewhere and do something, and it has phenomenal power to it, as well as this still reflective quality. So in this year, this idea that we should rise above and lean into a power, we have the element we need to do that. We've also got one here thing, a little kind of gift for you, which I'll work out how to get to you. One of the things you can do, and this is one of the things taken from the masterclass. One of the things that we can do is we can adopt a certain physical state. And when we adopt that physical state, we adopt some of the qualities of the elements associated with that physical state. So the kind of physicality of kind of water energy, as I show in this video, is to have that strong spine, that regal look, that up, to be able to have that strength to hold space. And what I'll do is I'll link this this video for you. You can see me showing how you step into that physical energy. So it's really one of the ways to handle this year to get more water energy is to adopt the physicality of water energy. The other thing that we have as a real kind of benefit for you to be able to kind of rise up and lean into your power is that tigers have this regal sovereignty to them. They're not scrapping around. They're not like hyenas that are scrapping around at the scraps. They are, in many cultures, they are the king of the jungle. So it's a similar energy to that kind of lion energy. So we've got power, we've got authority, we've got the ability to kind of look beyond that both the water energy and the tiger gives. And remember, a water tiger year only happens once every 60 years. So we're using this time to say, actually, we need to rise up above and lean into our power to decide how we want the world to be, not to be down in the mud scrapping away. And the third thing you need to do is you need to align your actions with your soul's calling. Now, you've got to be a little bit careful here because people think, oh, I don't know my purpose. I don't know my soul's calling. What am I here to do? Well, it's kind of what matters to you, really. And if you look at the Chinese characters for Ming Men and purpose. Now, every energy has a spiritual side to it. So water energy has this Ming Men and purpose, and this Zhi, which translates as kind of willpower. So the ancient Chinese believed that when we came to China, we made a promise to do something or to be something. And this kind of character, purpose, Ming Men, kind of expresses that. On this left-hand side, this means kind of heaven and earth and to voice, to say outwards. And then there is this, within that left-hand radical, there is like an official stamp that says you have made a contract. So it means a stamp on a contract. And then there is so it's like a banner that you will follow. So it means that when you came from heaven to earth, you said you would do something. It was given an official stamp of approval and you were given a banner to walk behind. And then on the right-hand side, those are like swinging doors, so entrance to the world. So we're tapping in this water energy year to say, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? And it doesn't have to be massive. It could be in this life to say, okay, I'm going to learn how to love myself. That's what I'm exploring. It could be to have close relationships. It doesn't have to be a world-rocking event. It could be an event for you that matters to you. So this is about what matters to you. We've had 2 years, metal energy years, where we worked out what we value, what we don't value, what's important, what isn't important. So that's given us some clues. And then below that is the character of a Zhi, which means like, they say it's willpower. But if you look at it, there's something far more important there. The top part of the character, that means like a blade of grass pushing up through the earth. And then the radical below that is like a heart. It was a symbol for heart. So what this means is your willpower, they say it's willpower, but it's really what is in your heart that you want to push into or bring into the world. what matters to you. So you're looking at these two combined aspects of water energy that we've got this year combined with the tiger, of saying, okay, what's in your heart that you want to bring to the world? What promise did you make when you came to this earth? What did you promise to do and explore? And we're going to give you the tiger to help you do that, to have that strength. So this is about not doing absolutely everything. It's about planting the seeds, because remember, the Grand Canyon did not happen in an afternoon. It started with a trickle, and then it just consistently worked away and then eventually created this. So you may be doing something that is beyond your lifetime or moving into other people's lifetime, but it does start here. And we're also, one of the really important things that one needs to recognize is that what we do in these few years, particularly this year, what we do will set the scene for a long, long time. So if you think in the last kind of water tiger year, metal ox year, and metal rat year, that was the beginning of the 1960s. And by kind of like to 1962, they were getting really clear. They say, actually, this is kind of how we want the world to be. There was a civil rights movement. There was, we want peace and love. We want to have individuality. We want to have expression. We don't want to be trapped in that. So there was a real sense of how we want the world to be, an idealistic sense, but it laid the seeds for how things would be. We moved away from the grief from 2 world wars and moved into a different way of thinking. We also made some choices in the beginning of the 1960s that had absolutely devastating effects for the world. So Kennedy said, you know, one of the things we really need to do is the way for the world to be successful is to have ever increasing GDP, ever increasing economic growth. And we're going to do that by buying and producing, and everyone's going to have everything they want. And we're going to just buy and produce, and the measurement. And remember, water energy is about measuring, metal energy is about measuring. So the measurement we're going to have for the purpose of the world is to grow and just create, to spend, to have consumerism. And that's what was started at that period of time. And you have to say, okay, well, how has that worked out for us to have had 60 years of rampant, uncontrolled consumerism and driving forward? How is that working out for the world? Well, it has had consequences. It has left its mark on the earth. So whatever we decide now will have it leave its mark on the earth, and it will play out for the next 60 years, which will be beyond my lifetime. So what you will do now will be beyond your lifetime. And the decisions we make now will have massive impact. And we've got this change in geopolitics. We're moving from populist democracy to an earth energy form of geopolitics. When earth energy is about assimilation, coming together, about communities, about communication, it's about understanding, it's about grassroots. And whatever we decide to do and however we decide to deal with these challenges and these changes will have implications going forward. So this is on our watch and a really, really important time. So this is how I think we and you should handle, to choose who has authority in your life, to rise above, to constantly look at the big picture, to lean into your power. And you have tremendous power at the moment. You've got a combination of the water, you've got the tiger. There is, once every 60 years, there is nothing bigger than this. And then it's about aligning your actions with your soul's calling, about what actually matters to you. And we need to be thinking what actually matters for humanity as well. This year goes beyond us as individuals. So if I could kind of sum up what you kind of need to do in this year, it's about being a water tiger, to step into that. And there is no better year to step into being a water tiger than in a water tiger year. But if I could give like 2 words to say what it is that you need to do, it would be to say, I choose. This is a year we say, I choose. This is how I choose to want the world to be. This is how I choose to operate. So at the 5 Institute, we're about internal and external cultures. How do you live with yourself, and how do we live together? And our thing is about kindness. So we choose kindness. That's the way that we say that actually we think this is how we want to operate, how we want to contribute. And we do the vitality test and we give it away free and all that stuff, because how we interact and how you understand yourself and how we understand other people and how we come together as internal and external cultures, for us, is one of our roles and one of the things we think will will really help the world. So just remember that thing, I choose. This is what you need to do. And it's choosing from that highest place, that water tiger, where you have that power. So I hope you found that helpful. Like I say, this has come from some content from the Tiger Masterclass that we're running on the 6th of February. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now and we can have some questions.
Wonderful, Nick. That is mind-bogglingly wonderful. And I've heard you talk before. I'll remove the remove spotlight. I've heard you speak before about this wider context, and it's so interesting. Once you understand the building blocks of each of the 5 elements, never mind the animals, it helps you understand this bigger arc, and then you're putting it in the context. So there's so much happening at the moment with the 2 years we've been through, with the kind of leadership we've had in the world, things, you know, very egoic, patriarchal, male, egoic leaders. And there's so much shifting and there's so much potential. It's like, what will we move to next? And then we can see so much rising up of people. You know, we don't want discord, but then we do want to interrupt things. So that there's a lot bubbling, and then we have to take that into ourselves. You know, the big world and the small world. So let's see if we have questions from people. I do know some people who are 60 this year. There's a couple of people on the call who are 60. It might be interesting for you to share what it's like to be in your 60th year, to experience the same energy of birth, and then also maybe the water tiger.
Okay, well, let's look at the astrological aspect from a Chinese point of view, whether this is your water tiger year or whatever year it is. So like I said, I don't fundamentally believe that any year is lucky or unlucky for any of us. So you say, oh, well, actually, this is a really bad year for a water rat, or this is a so-and-so for a this or that. I really just don't think that's true. I don't see how you could have all the people that were born in a year have a terrible year this year. It just doesn't make any sense. So what you've got is, if you were, say, born in 1962, in a water tiger year, what you have is a kind of a vibrational resonance with this year. It was your first experience of life was being in this particular year. So it will have a familiarity to it because that was your resonance. But what did you decide to do when you came to Earth? What are the other elements within you? Are you someone that has a lot of kind of wood energy and you're very rebellious and you want to have things new? Or are you someone with a lot of earth energy because that's what you chose to explore? And that is really about, can we come together? Can we understand each other? You know, so the qualities that you see in your vitality test profile are in fact like an amalgam of your Chinese energy profile, your stars, your numerology, the promise you made. So I tend to like looking at these years as to how you are within your energy makeup. So I've got a lot of fire energy in my profile, and a lot of wood energy, fire energy, and earth. So I want us to come together. My earth energy says I want us to come together. My fire energy says, hey, let's try and make this a bit lively, a bit fun. Let's try and be happy as we do this. And my wood energy kind of wants a new world but hates injustice, so I can get very fired up and angry about things, and that matters kind of more in a way. So will this be a good year for you because you're 60 this year? Well, yes and no. It just depends how you handle it. That's all that matters, how you handle it. Yeah,
Potential is there.
Great question. Very small question, very long answer. I'm really good at that.
Yeah, but I can remember my wood sheep year. It felt good. It felt a kind of cycle. It's just this feeling of coming around again.
Yeah.
And it's like knitting and then coming around again, and but the stitches are different. You know, there's a kind of looping round. And of
very
course,
much so.
You're in that year, but with the 60 years of wisdom and experience and insight. So you're always moving into another phase, but with the energy behind
Absolutely.
you. So
and that's why I think it's interesting that you're in your 60th year, because it is a transition stuff. And we've got other birthdays. We've got America having this big Pluto return. We've got other anniversaries going on.
Yeah.
Any other?
Is there anybody else ask questions? You mentioned this masterclass that you're going to do. Is it Sunday? So I did put a link there in case people wanted to have a go with the profile, which
Oh, good.
they're able to do. And I think I put it on the email before. They can try it out and explore. And then also on your website, would they, if they wanted to go deeper in this, if they wanted to explore further, they can find the masterclass on your website.
Yeah. And the other thing that we've got there as well, I think is really worth mentioning, is that, like for many of us, we've been through I certainly felt over the last few years, I felt at times that I was kind of like deeply broken by experiences. So one of the things that we have to recognize is that as we were being broken, we were actually being rearranged. However, the very process of being broken to be rearranged leaves trauma, leaves scars and stuff. So we also have something called the 5-day mindset makeover, which just looks at your relationship with time, looks at how you kind of get through things. And being a bit tearful, it's clearly not a good advert for the mindset makeover, but it is transformational for people. We've just given it free to anybody in health, anybody in education. So we just had hundreds and hundreds of people do it. And that's there for you, for people. It's very low cost. If you don't have any money and you can't afford it, or someone else can't afford it, we will do it completely free. But it's one way that you can say, okay, well, let's help us let go of our stuff in order to move forward for into the future. Because one of the things the Mindset Makeover does is it's really good at helping you with your core confidence and your confidence. Clearly not that good at grief and loss, but it's great at dealing with confidence. And one of the things we really need to be doing is to be deeply confident and powerful at this time. So if you've got stuff around your confidence and your sense of power, your sense of ability to do things, if there's anything wobbly around that, then the Mindset Makeover is really good. It's really, really good to do that. And we run it every 6 weeks or so. So that would be one I would really recommend. Like I said, it's free if you need it, and we give it to lots of other people. So that would be good.
Yeah, I'm mindful of that Japanese term. Somebody here will know, when things are broken and then they're made good, then they're repaired.
Yes.
And then they make something of the crack. They put gold in the vase, and it's made more beautiful. Somebody can put that on the chat if they remember what the Japanese term is. That there's more character to it because it's been through a flaw, a trauma, a breakage, and it's been put back together, but it's slightly different because it's been added. So you're referring to that, and I'm just mindful of the fact, when you talk about letting go of stuff, letting go of, the older you are, the more history you've got, the more experiences. There's a lot you carry, and I've just been watching on Netflix The Minimalists, which is traumatic when you've got a lot of stuff, and they're guys actually presenting. I always think men have, are easily let go things more than women, but anyway, I'm a collector. But it was interesting watching them really take this on in American society, which I don't know whether it's the most consumer society where people have a lot of stuff. But there's those two aspects, isn't there? The letting go of things we just got into the habit of collecting and holding on to too much in this, as you talked about, this 60 years of consumerism where we're pushed and encouraged, and the culture pushes us forward to buy things and grow and aspire and go to the next bigger house and the next one. And also, to live cleanly, to let go of each day, to take some time to pull back and recover from experiences and memories and process them so that we're clearer to move forward. So, it's a big deal, isn't it, letting go?
It is. And we've had 2 years exploring what it is to let go. So it's no surprise all these minimalist programs are there, and Marie Kondo and all these things, because the last 2 years have been about less is more, about getting rid of things, clearing things out, whether they're old belief systems, whether they're locked in grief, whatever they are. It's been trying to bring it to the surface for us to resolve.
It's wabi sabi, Nick, that Adele's reminded me.
Oh, yes.
That
yeah,
is the terminology. Somebody else put another kintsugi, that must be another name for it. And Priscilla asked a question, any relevance in the wood of the tiger? I'm not quite clear of what that question means. Do you understand that?
Yeah. So when we have the kind of wood element linked with the tiger, whether you are a wood tiger or whether or not you have a lot of wood element within you, whatever, it definitely does kind of link with this year, as every single one of the elements links with the year, depending upon what you've got in your constitutional makeup, your profile. So I think one of the great things about the kind of wood as an element to bring into it is about newness, and it is about innovation. It's also about injustice. So Dr. Martin Luther King had a lot of wood energy. It was about injustice, fighting injustice. It was also about, wood is also about keeping within the rules or challenging the rules, or breaking down the rules. So it is an element that is saying, let's have something new, let's challenge injustices, let's have the world. It's about fairness. It's also an element that creates incredible injustice as a result of a dogmatic fixed view. So each one of the elements, as you know, has a highest version of that, like Martin Luther King, or you could have the lowest version of wood energy. You've got Adolf Hitler. They're the same element. They're just expressions of the same thing. Hitler said, I'm fighting an injustice. Martin Luther King said, I'm fighting an injustice. So it is an energy that brings power to it, but it can also bring dogma. It can bring insights and innovation, but it also bring fixed ideas and dogma and stubbornness. So again, it's how you play it. But I think it's a good one to bring in, really.
Well, we don't have any more questions, and we have gone on from a bit longer, but we're all still here by one or two. So I think everybody's been really interested in what you said. And Nick, thank you. It's wonderful. And we're still recording here. So we've got the recording if anybody wants to listen. And thank you. It's very kind of you to give the PowerPoint and for people to refresh on if they want to have that reminder. I know I made notes, but I'm grateful. And you know, here we are as the Feng Shui Society, and I know you're doing one of these for our Conscious Cafe Global tomorrow. Each night you're booked, aren't you? Chinese New Year is your busy week.
yeah. So I'm actually doing three or four a day at the moment.
Oh, really?
So, which is fun.
Well, bless you. And I will just unspotlight us, and then everybody can see everybody. Remove the spotlight, remove the spotlight on myself. And I think everybody can give you a wave goodbye.
That's
gratitude. Nick?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. It's been marvelous, and we absolutely appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll maybe get you back again another time.
Yeah.
I hope everybody enjoyed tonight. We can have more of these, but it's been it's wonderful to be in community across the world, all the places that we've come from.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful time for Feng Shui, isn't it? To create that flow and that balance, to create that harmony and the individual support. It's like it's a match made in heaven. This is a great time for those skills and energies to the world.
Well, certainly with so many people have spent so much time at home for the last couple of years, everybody's been re-evaluating home. They've been re-evaluating workplaces. They've been re-evaluating buildings. You know, will we go back to the office? Will we work at home? Everything is up for grabs, and nothing is set in stone, is it? Or things that were absolutely set in stone are absolutely changed. So we're all going through a great time of change, and putting everything you've given us, putting the context, it's very exciting, much to think about.
Yeah, and Gina, I'll give you that link to the physicality of water energy, and you can find it on YouTube. Go to Nicholas Haines, my YouTube channel, you'll see it there. But I'll give you the link to it as well. Okay.
Wonderful resource. Thank you, Nick. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure.